about the male diet specifically on TikTok. Some context for this project: TikTok is huge nationwide, 1.1 billion monthly users in the world, 100 million of which are in the US. A subsection of TikTok is going to be male fitness, specifically bodybuilding, which is the most prominent subsection of male fitness on TikTok. Bodybuilding is simply described as the effort to become more lean and toned, and is something that has been linked strongly to disordered eating and changes in eating habits. Bodybuilding on TikTok can be described using hashtags, which are ways to group videos of similar content. So a few, for an example, would be hashtag bodybuilding lifestyle, and a few others that I'm going to go more into in my method section. But the problem here, men's diet is in not the best place overall in the US. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for men, and this is due in major part to males' diet, which is both significantly worse than women's on average and significantly worse than expert recommendation by professionals. The chart shows a pretty big disparity in the rate at which males die to heart disease instead of females, and a lot of this has been attributed to diet, and more on that will be later. But so the gap that I'm trying to cover here, it's been established that the average male diet isn't up to the standard that it should be. It's also been established that bodybuilding messaging on social media links to changes in eating or disordered eating. And then there's been research done on similar topics for females, which have been extensively researched. They seem to be more in the limelight, but not much has been done on male-directed fitness content. The importance of this, personally, I chose this topic. I've been affected by rhetoric pertaining to the way I should eat. And I've seen myself making choices based on what I've heard. And then generally, male diet has a huge impact on life and death health concerns. Heart disease is, again, the leading cause of death for males. And it's something that we should, it's worth looking into. And then just the prevalence of social media in our current day and age, and the way it keeps becoming more prevalent in the way we think. On to the literature review. The first part, social media and body image. The link is strong between social media use and the way we perceive our own bodies, and that's been shown between gender, age, and different platforms, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And it's been proven both longitudinally and cross-sectionally. Overall, it leads to unrealistic expectations of progress. It causes people to think that they can become something that is incompatible with their physiological limits and the recommendations of professionals. It also leads to decreased self-worth and social anxiety when people are insecure about their own bodies. Then body image and diet, those two are also very close linked. Research shows that the correlation between someone's own body image and their dietary restrictions is actually higher than that with BMI and either of those factors. This means that people are more likely to change their diet based on how they perceive their own body than what their body composition actually is. It means that the perception of body is more impactful than the reality. Diet messaging on social media. Social media is known to exaggerate things in order to fit a narrative. And this leads to a lot of propagandistic messaging, like has been seen in a few other studies. One on the hashtag cheat meals on Instagram found that a lot of the information there was against medical advice and weaponized jealousy in order to convey a point. A similar thing was found using weight normative content on TikTok, which found similar weaponization of jealousy and targeted language to push a point that wasn't necessarily aligned with medical advice. And then lastly here, the male diet and health. High intakes of meat, soft drinks, and beer correlate, and low intakes of fruit and vegetables correlate highly with coronary heart disease, something that I mentioned earlier. The male diet is similarly portrayed using these values a lot of the time. A 2014 content analysis on the Men's Health magazine found that four times more references to protein than to fruits and vegetables in the advice that they were giving in these magazines, which is why men experience heart disease at a much higher rate than women. So my research question is, how is the optimal male diet portrayed in the fitness industry on TikTok? In order to answer this question, I used a qualitative content analysis. First, the selection of the videos I chose to look at. I chose the 5 most popular hashtags on TikTok that included the keyword bodybuilding, and then sorted those by the most viewed videos, which would give me the most accurate viewer representation of what the viewer is seeing, the things that most people have seen the most amount of times. And then the criteria I used were, they were under those hashtags, and they featured a male subject or a reference to male target audience, and then they had implicit or explicit dieting information or recommendations. Then for how I went into the coding, I used a two-part system using inductive coding and deductive coding. For inductive code, I used a sample of 30 and was just looking for general themes within the data set. This is what helped me build my code book, which would then be used for my deductive coding, which had a sample size of 15 and went line by line looking at every single thing that the videos are saying and collecting actual data that I'm going to be presenting in a little bit. These are the frequency of the themes that I found over my content analysis. It's a little bit much to look at right now, but I'm going to go more in depth on what each correlation, or what each relationship found. First, delivery. Out of the 15 most viewed videos, 0 were given by professionals. There was 0 people professional in sports medication, dietetics, nutrition, anything like that. However, there are 12 bodybuilders, 9 amateur, 3 professional bodybuilders that compete in competitions delivering this information. The other 3 were just text or pictures with no actual presenter. As you can see on the right, that's a professional bodybuilder telling the viewers what he wants or what he eats like, and overall sending that message. Lack of professional advice is not a new thing on TikTok. The weight normative study on TikTok found that only 1.6% of videos were delivered by professionals in the field, similar to what I found. And this is overall an appeal to false authority. In essence, physique is credentials on TikTok, and an eye-catching physique will get more views than someone that actually has a background in the topic. And this is dangerous in a landscape where performance-enhancing drugs and there's so many different factors to control from. It's hard to just take the word for someone that has a good physique. Then exposure. I found that 9 out of the 12 bodybuilding delivery TikToks had some essence of an exposed physique, really bringing attention to those credentials per se. I sorted them into 3 levels because these two don't exactly have the same level of exposure. Level 1 was inherently revealing clothing, like right here, with just a cut-off shirt or tank top of some sort that shows that someone is built but isn't necessarily drawing attention to it. Level 2 was people that were shirtless, just giving information. And then 3 was an intentional reference to physique, like a flex or people pointing, that really draw attention to those credentials again. This is similar to what has been already found in the field. The content analysis of hashtag cheat meal on Instagram found 40% of those videos showed some sort of body exposure. I found a higher percentage at 60%. That could be because mine focused only on males, which were more likely to expose their physique. This forces the viewer to infer that if they do what is being recommended, they will look similar, which again is very dangerous in a landscape where things aren't always only based on diet like that. And it leads to the unrealistic expectations previously mentioned about how someone can grow into physique that just isn't physiologically possible. And the last theme was content. 6 out of the 15 videos preached some sort of high volume or increase in calories. 2, low volume decrease. 1 was about cost-effective content, and then 6 kind of fit into a place where there wasn't really a clear theme, or they didn't fit into these categories. High volume was the most frequent in my study, as was it in the Men's Health magazine study. I found 6 of the 15 were high volume, whereas much less for the low volume and cost effective. But overall, the message here is that there is no consensus message, which is something that I was surprised to find, but there is no clear message being portrayed to the viewer. It's very jumbled and hard to describe exactly what is being portrayed. This leads to my conclusions. How is the male diet being portrayed on TikTok? First, there is no consensus message. There is no one way that it's being portrayed. It's being portrayed in ways that conflict each other, in ways that are different than each other. Second, it's being portrayed with little to no expert opinion. It's people on a platform where an eye-catching physique sells more than actual credentials. And then thirdly, exactly that, eye-catching exposure equals engagement and performance, rather than someone who has a background in the topic. Thank you.